Hello. Welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn, and I have another recipe card for you. So, few weeks ago, I introduced this new series called Recipe Cards, and the first one was mosaic cards. My idea behind these card making recipes is to share with you a short list of supplies, teach a technique, and from there, if you follow along with the recipe, you can kind of make it your own because the idea is that these are very general uh, guides and not meant to be super prescriptive that you have to follow it precisely. And just like a cook or a chef might make a stew or a chili from whatever ingredients they happen to have on hand, you can do the same with these recipe cards. So the recipe card that I will be sharing in this video is an Eclipse card. So I already picked out some gorgeous pattern paper. This is from Bitty Penny's Page Turner Volume 1. I picked this one, and in particular, I really like using Bitty Penny's collections because they have such gorgeous scenes. Now I'm going to actually be crafting with the back, but look at how beautiful those cut aparts are. So here's the recipe. You'll want a background panel, a die. I'm going to use a word die. I think that's pretty common, but really you could make anything work. And some solid colored cardstock. I'm going to use both white and coral. And if you want an additional sentiment, you can. And of course, some embellishments if you would like. So I am going to start off by trimming this panel down. So the Bitty Penny papers are 6 by 8, and because I'm making an A2 size card, I want to trim this down to 4 by 5 1/4. So I'm gonna just slice this to 5 1/4, but I'm gonna choose which end I prefer to cut off because one end it's a little bit closer to the flower, and that flower is gorgeous, so I want to leave as much of it as possible. And then I'm going to trim this down to 4 inches this way. And the second panel, I'll just save that for a second card, maybe a second eclipse card. So I'm going to go ahead, and I think I missed a little bit, so I just trimmed a little bit off from that end too. But we're going to put that aside and save that for a second card later. I'm just going to make the one card in today's video. And you'll want a card base. I'm choosing to use a color card base, and I picked out this lovely coral because I think it goes well. It complements those flowers. And so I've picked that out as well to craft with. And next, what I'm going to do is I want to take my die, and again, this can be any die really, but often this technique is used with a word die. So that's what I've chosen, but I'm going to have more videos where I play with this recipe, and I'll show you some different ways that you can kind of put your own twist on it. And so what I'll start off doing is I already scored this card base. So I'm just gonna make sure it actually does line up and put a nice fold and burnish that fold in. And so we're gonna start there. And my panel I've already cut to 4 by 5 1/4, so a little bit of that solid border shows. And now I'm gonna position my word die. Now really, you could position this anywhere you like. If you don't want to cut into your image, you don't have to. But the beauty of the Eclipse style card is that you're not going to lose any bit of this design. And so you don't have to avoid die cutting into any particular area that is maybe like the most beautiful part of this pattern paper. And this is why I wanted to use this pattern from Bitty Penny. I feel like all of her papers are so gorgeous. And in particular, she has so many that have beautiful scenes as well. I think I'm going to do this technique on another a few of her designs, maybe one that actually has a full scene and isn't just like a lovely floral like this one is. And for me, it's always really hard to craft with gorgeous papers like that because I feel like if I layer things on top of them, then I'm just covering up all of that gorgeousness. And so the beauty of the Eclipse technique is that we're going to use all of it. We're going to inlay that right back in, and you're not going to lose a bit of the design. So I don't actually mind die cutting into where the flower is. So you can see I've cut that out. And it's going to look a little something like that. Now be careful that you keep all of your pieces. So we want all of those letters, and we want all of the little interior bits. So you know how the inside of the O, it's got just that little bit of cardstock that's in the center there. You want to keep that. Same with the E. It's got a little bit of that bit of cardstock that falls out at the top of the E. You want to save that as well. So make sure you don't lose any of your bits. Not super critical, but the effect is much nicer when you have everything saved. So I'm gonna do a little bit more die cutting. I'm gonna die cut the word hello a few more times, quite a few more times. In fact, I'm gonna cut it once out of the coral cardstock that I have here. So I picked coral because it's one of the colors in the pattern papers. I think it'll help to um, add a little bit of dimension to the letters, and you'll see how I use that in a bit. You could use something like the blue would be really lovely too, because that'll bring in the blue border that we have. So it just depends on how subtle versus how much contrast you want to introduce. But I also die cut the word hello out of white. And with the white version, I actually die cut it 3 times and glued 3 layers together. If you wanted, you could use foam instead of multiple layers of cardstock. And the white layer is actually for some added dimension. And that's so that your letters, when we inlay them back in, they don't, completely fade into the background. And while we want to maintain all of that beautiful design, we do want to add something that makes it so that you can actually read the hello, the word hello here. And so adding that bit of dimension is going to help a lot. So if I nest these letters in, they're gonna fit perfectly inside. But before I start gluing those down, I want to actually put all of the little bits, the little enclosed areas in the letters, I want to glue those down flat because I only want my letters to be popped up and raised. Everything else needs to actually be adhered straight to the card base. So I need to do that with the O as well. Now you could do that with your white layer, but the thing is that some of these little bits, they could fit both ways because the shape is identical or symmetrical. And so that's why I like to use the original letter so that I know that I'm matching this up and that the design is seamless. Because that's the beauty of this technique is that you still preserve the entire pattern, or if you're using a scene, it preserves the entire scene. And yet you can still have a sentiment built in. And that's why a lot of times a sentiment or a word die is used for this technique so that you don't have to add anything extra. And the first layer that I glued down was the stack of white. So now if you look, I can glue my letters right back in. And you can see it preserves the design, but the letters really are hard to read off of that. And so I am going to glue the coral version of the letters, but I'm going to offset it a little bit so that it becomes a little bit of a drop shadow. And you could glue your letters onto the white version and do the same thing, offset it a little bit so that a little bit of that white peeks through. And that way you're using the white as a way to pop the letters off a little bit. But I wanted to keep it still pretty subtle. So that's why I picked a color that coordinates with the pattern, because we see a lot of the coral color in the flowers. And at the same time, because it just has that bit of solid color, it does help you to read the sentiment a little bit better. So that's why I made that choice. But depending on how much you want your letters to pop off the background, you can use whatever you'd like. So you could go with a nice bright color, because where these letters are, the pattern is kind of dark. So if I'd use maybe white or the blue of my card base, I think that would have been higher contrast and you would see the letters a lot more. And so this is a place where you can just kind of play a little bit and, uh, see what you like best. But it's a very simple technique. It's really easy to do. You don't need a lot of supplies. And you can use all of your gorgeous papers that maybe you would otherwise hate to cover up or cut into. Because look, we have preserved the entire pattern. So having this stacked layers of white, I think that also helps the sentiment read a little bit better too. Because once you tilt it, you're going to see that white show. But it's, I like adding that little extra layer of the coral cardstock, because without tilting the card, it's still pretty subtle, so it doesn't really take too much away from the design, but it is, going to help break that design up so that it's not quite so seamless. And it really is because of how I positioned it. It's only on, the two edges, because I added it as a drop shadow. So if you look at the top and the left border, it's really seamless and flush with the design, and the solid color cardstock really just breaks up the design on the bottom and the right border. Now, to finish up my card, I am going to add a bit of a sub-sentiment, totally optional to do. But one of the reasons why I positioned the sentiment so high up is because I did want to add a little sentiment below. I don't want this to be huge, but because again, one of the beauty of the Eclipse style cards is that it's very simple, and it is sort of a celebration of whatever your background is. In this case, the pattern paper design that I'm using, but you could use an inky panel that you've made. You can use an embossed panel. You could use a background that you've stamped and colored. It can really be anything that you want. And one of the things that I like about it is, like I said, because it preserves the entire design, it really, for me, makes it a lot easier to craft with pattern papers that I might not otherwise want to cut into because they are so pretty. But this way, we get to see the entire pattern. And in particular, one of the things that I find sometimes hard to craft with are pattern papers where it's a scene, because sometimes I feel like, how do I cut into that scene? How do I add things on top of that scene? It just takes away from it. And so I'm really excited to craft with some of the other paper collections by Biddy Penny, because she's got some really gorgeous papers, and hers are perfect for this style of card because it does preserve every bit of their beauty, and at the same time have your sentiment and everything built in. So I used the You Deserve All the Best. That's from the Mini Messages stamp set by Not Too Shabby. And this is my final card. I had a lot of fun making this card. It's a simple design. It's been around for ages, and you don't need a lot to create this. And it's definitely one where you can put your own twist on it. Just follow the recipe of a background panel of some sort, a die, usually a word die, and some additional solid color cardstock, and anything else that you want to add is just extra icing on the cake. Thanks so much. And if you play with this recipe card, I hope you'll share it. And if you share to social media, please tag me at LV Handcrafted so I can see what you've made. Thanks again, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye.